part 2 of chapter 99. Don't know what happened there. We got disconnected. So let's read that pasuk again, verse number 4. Va'oz melech mishpat. Ahev ata konanta meisharim. Mishpat utzedaka b'Yaakov ata asisa. And the might of the king who loves judgment, you founded equity, judgment, and righteousness you made in Yaakov. So this is referring back to the previous pasuk, verse number 3, where it says they will acknowledge your great and awesome name, that it is holy. What are we acknowledging here? We're acknowledging the fact that Hashem is a king who loves judgment. Now, one of the things that we are going to understand, and not only are we going to understand, but the world is going to understand about judgment and about truth and justice, is the fact that Hashem sent Bnei Yisrael, sent the Jewish people into exile, where we have been for thousands of years, and it's time for this exile to come to an end. And at the same time, there will be an acknowledgement that Higia Zaman Golaschem, that just as it was Hashem's decision and justice and the right thing for the Jewish people to be sent into Golus, to be sent into exile, so too the world is going to recognize, the nations of the world are going to recognize, we said in this verse, and the might of the king who loves judgment, that now the judgment is that there should be geula, there should be redemption, that the time has come, and this is going to be recognized by everybody. The Radak translates and explains this concept of judgment in a different way. The Radak says, you established uprightness in the laws of the Torah which you gave to Yaakov. Mishpat utzedaka b'Yaakov. What does it mean? That you founded equity, judgment, and righteousness you made in Yaakov. That is in the mitzvahs that we were given. And when the redemption will take place, everybody is going to acknowledge and appreciate these mitzvahs, because it's these mitzvahs with the Torah that Hashem has given us the tool and the strength to be able to have peace and compromise. During the eras of exile, it's an era of constant struggle, constant fighting, wars and battles. Hashem gave us the Torah, and in the Torah, many of the mitzvahs can be seen as a source of peace. So, what are the examples that are given? The Midrash gives us is the example where the Torah tells us that if you see the donkey of your enemy that is struggling under its load, what is the obligation? You have an obligation to help unload the heavy load from the donkey and help the donkey to get up once again. It's also a commandment, it's also a mitzvah, that if you find the lost ox, something that belongs to your enemy that is lost, you have the obligation to give it back to the person. Now imagine this scenario. Imagine this scene as the Midrash tells us. So the Midrash says that there were two donkey drivers that were arch enemies. They hated each other. And it happened that once the donkey of one of the drivers was staggering under its load, and the other driver happened to be passing by. And he said to himself, as he sees this, oh, this reminds me of a mitzvah in the Torah. The Torah says, when you see the enemy of your donkey crouching under its load, you shall surely assist him. So what did he do? He went back and he helped out his enemy. So how did he have the strength to be able to go back and help him? He hated him. It really and truly, in his mind, in his heart, he's thinking to himself, good for him. But then no, he's a Torah Jew, and he remembers the halacha. He remembers the law, mind over heart. He remembers the law. So he goes back to help his enemy, and he helps him on his way. So now what's going on in the mind of his enemy? His enemy is saying to himself, wait a minute, I thought this guy hated me. He can't hate me that much if he stopped to come back and he took pity on me and he took pity on my donkey when we needed his help. And that led one thing to another, where he says to him, come with me, let me give you a meal. We'll stop at the nearby inn, we'll have a meal together. And ultimately they became good friends. And this is the meaning of this pasuk. The Medrash says, you have established uprightness, you have done justice and righteousness. Justice and righteousness. Let's have a look at these two concepts and these two ideas. The Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe. So we have these two expressions here, mishpat u'tzedakah, judgment and justice and righteousness. On this verse, the Alter Rebbe talks about a halacha, he talks about a law, that if there are two people in the desert and there's only enough water for one of them to survive, so the halacha is, the law is that the person who has the water does not need to share the water with the other one. In other words, a person doesn't have to give up their life for another person. This is brought down in the Gemara, Baba Metzia. But the halacha, the Alter Rebbe says, only refers to a person's actual life, meaning the water in this situation, the person needs to stay alive. If they give up that water, then they cannot survive, they cannot live. Here, in this pasuk, in this verse, we talk about two ideas, mishpat u'tzedakah, judgment and righteousness. Tzedakah, it's a term that we're used to. When we apply justice to a self, meaning we have a look and we ask ourselves in all strictness, in all seriousness, what do I really need to survive? Can I survive without an extra roll of toilet paper? Should I share that with someone? Can I survive without an extra roll of kitchen towel? Should I share? When we're honest with ourselves and we look at what we truly need to survive, to live, and we make sure that we have that, then we can look at the rest of what we have and we can say to ourselves, you know what? I've really got plenty that I can give to another person. in essence, we also need to apply this in giving of ourselves, of our energy to other people as well. We have to ask ourselves, how much time do I need to devote to myself? And I do need to devote time to myself, right? We remember the days when we used to fly? So we fly, we go on an airplane, and we're given instructions what to do in the case of an emergency where we will need to have an oxygen mask. The first thing that we are instructed is make sure to put on your own oxygen mask first. Why? Because if you have oxygen, then you can breathe and you can help somebody else. So it's very important in life, as we go through life, to make sure that there is a level of self-care, but there needs to be an honest appraisal of what we need, of how much time do I need for myself, how many resources do I need for myself, how much money do I need for myself to survive, to be able to be a provider. And now I can say, okay, look how much I have to give to another person. Look how much time I have to give to another person. Look how much money I have to give to another person. Look how much energy I have to give to another person, and so on and so forth. When we do this, when we honestly look at ourselves, when we judge ourselves in an honest manner, the Alter Rebbe says, that causes the Eibishter, God, also to look and to judge in a true way, and to make sure that Hashem's energy is not going to unholy forces, but rather it flows to worthy recipients. And the Rebbe, who spoke also on this chapter, says that when we ask Hashem for things, we can ask Hashem for things in one of two ways. We can ask Hashem to reward us with justice, mishpat, with justice. What does that mean? That means that we deserve it. So we come to Hashem and we say to Hashem, okay, I deserve X, Y, and Z, whatever it is that I am asking for. When we ask Hashem for things in this manner, in this way, in justice, what we have to realize is that we have to be ready to open ourselves up to scrutiny, to be judged, where the Eibishter, where God says, okay, you say you're deserving, so let's look at the facts. But when we ask for Hashem's help in a more humble way, where we ask for Hashem for tzedakah, we say, you know what, Hashem? Not necessarily am I so deserving. There may be things, there may be areas where I fall short. So if it's a question of justice, maybe it's not the way it needs to be. But I'm not asking you for justice. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're asking you for tzedakah. We're asking you in a humble way. So, when we ask Hashem for things with humility, then we open ourselves up to unconditional kindness. And we don't ask for things to be judged. So, when we appeal to Hashem, we should appeal to Hashem for tzedakah. We should appeal to Hashem in a humble way. And this way, the Rebbe says, that Hashem will bless us with unconditional tzedakah, with unconditional chesed, far beyond anything that we could ever dream of meriting. And when we think about this, when we think about these ideas, we think about these concepts, that we come to Hashem and we ask Hashem for tzedakah. We ask Hashem not to judge us and just to give us because of kindness. Maybe we don't deserve. We in turn become more humble. We become humble, and when we become humble, we make room for others in our heart. And we are able in this way to not be judgmental of others and not ask, does the person deserve this? But rather, do I want to be charitable? Do I want to do something that is chesed, that is kindness? And when we see that Hashem can be that way to us, the truth is, we say that Hashem, the way we judge others is the way that we cause our judgment to be. So if we are charitable and we are kind and we're not looking to see, does somebody deserve this, the Eibishter Hashem mirrors our behavior as well, and we cause that the way Hashem is to us is in a way of kindness and not in a way of strict justice. But at the same time, in the era of redemption, in the era when Mashiach is going to come, this that we said in Pasuk Beis, Hashem B'Tzion Gadol, that the Lord is great in Zion, V'Ram Hu Al Kol Ha'amim, and He's high over all the peoples, means that this Pasuk over here, where Hashem, who loves judgment, you founded equity, judgment, and righteousness, judgment is going to be passed on those who perpetrated evil against Hashem's nation, and righteousness will come to Bnei Israel. Righteousness will come to the Jewish nation. And it is through this that the Kiddush Hashem is going to come about. This is how the revelation is going to come about, from Zion, from Zion. This brings us to Pasuk Hey, verse number 5. Romamu Hashem Elokeinu, exalt the Lord our God, v'hishtachavu lahadom raglov kadoshu, and prostrate yourself to his footstool, it is holy. What is the meaning of this verse? Romamu Hashem Elokeinu, that exalt the Lord our God and prostrate yourself to his footstool, it is holy. This is referring to not only Bnei Israel, but to the entire world. All the nations will exalt the Lord our God. So Romamu Hashem Elokeinu, exalt the Lord your God. Me'am Lois says this means with your mouths, to sing praises to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to sing praises to God. The whole world is going to recognize. It's going to be revelation. That's what redemption is, revelation. And everybody is going to recognize. And therefore, everybody is going to exalt Hashem. How? Through singing songs of praise and bow down at his footstool. What does that mean, at his footstool? So the footstool, this is the name, this is what the holy temple is called. It's called his footstool. And actually the world is also called the footstool of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the footstool of Hashem. So it's going to be very, very clear that Hashem is running the world, always has been running the world. He's creator of the world. He is the one who sent us into Golus, into exile. He is the one who has redeemed us. And everybody is going to recognize this fact and this idea, and they will express it. And again, if we want to open up our eyes, we are seeing this already now. And just like with the story of Purim that was done through nature, and that's why we don't find the name of Hashem mentioned once in the Megillah. Everything was hidden. So too now. Things are happening in the world and have been happening, but we are still in a state of Golus. We are still in a state where Hashem's presence is hidden. We are waiting for the Geula. We are waiting for the redemption, which is what? Which is the revelation. But that doesn't take away from the reality. Perhaps this is one of the meanings of we need to open our eyes. We need to look at what is happening and recognize these events for what they truly are. They are Hashem. We're going to come to Emetz Hashem, to Pesach, sooner rather than later. We're a week and a half away from Pesach. We're going to sit down and we're going to read the Haggadah. And we are going to see this idea in the Haggadah, the idea of exile and redemption, of God being in a hidden state and ultimately becoming revealed. And we know that as long as Bnei Yisrael were Mitzrayim, were in Egypt, God was in a very, very hidden state. And there were elements of the Jewish nation that were able to see things for what they truly were, even though it was very, very difficult. And they kept the whole nation going. B'schus nashim tzikoniyos, it was in the merit of the righteous women in Mitzrayim who were able to see beneath the darkness, who were able to see beneath the cloud and the darkness. This brings us to Pasuk Vav. Now we mention over here Moshe v'Aharon b'chol hanav. Remember, we're talking here about the future, when we're going to come to the Beis HaMikdash, to the Holy Temple. Moses and Aaron among his priests, Shmuel and Samuel, Shmuel the prophet, Bekorei Shemo, among them that call upon his name, Korim El Hashem V'hu Ya'anem, they called to the Lord and he answered them. So why is it proper for the nations and for the people to exalt God, to exalt Hashem? We see this from Moshe and from Aaron and from Shmuel. Now, it's interesting. We see over here 3 great leaders put together: Moshe, Aaron, and Shmuel, Samuel the prophet. And the Medrash tells us that we can see from here that Shmuel was equal in greatness to Moshe and Aharon. The fact that he's mentioned over here, Moshe ba'Aaron b'chonav, Moshe and Aaron among his priests, and Shmuel among them, tells us that he was equal in greatness. In fact, the Medrash says that in a certain area, Shmuel surpassed even Moshe Rabbeinu, even Moses. Why? Because if Moshe Rabbeinu, if Moses wanted to hear what HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to tell him, he had to go to the tabernacle to hear what Hashem said. But with Shmuel, if you look in the book of prophets, it tells us that Shmuel, Hashem would come to him. Why was there this difference? Why Moshe Rabbeinu in his time had to come to the tabernacle, and Shmuel, Hashem would come to him where he was? So we see here how Hashem treats us midah keneged midah, measure for measure. If you look in the Torah, and the Torah tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu was busy day and night judging the Jewish people. Moses sat in one place and everybody had to come to Moshe Rabbeinu. Everybody had to come to Moses. But Shmuel Samuel the prophet, Shmuel Hanavi, Samuel the prophet, he would travel from place to place. So God said, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses who sits in one place, the same will be that he will have to come to the tent of meeting to hear me. Shmuel, who travels from place to place, I will go and I will speak to him wherever he may be. Now, the Me'am Loes also brings a very interesting interpretation. It says, what does the Pasuk say? The Pasuk says, Moshe v'Aaron b'choanav, Moshe and Aaron among them, among his priests, or Shmuel b'korei shemo, and Shmuel among them that called his name. Let's go back to the story of the birth of Shmuel Hanavi, Samuel the prophet. Shmuel's mother was barren for many, many years. Many years she didn't have a child. Now the sages tell us the 40 years before Shmuel's birth, every day a bas kol, a heavenly voice, would go out from heaven to announce that a tzaddik is going to be born and his name is going to be Shmuel. Now at that time, people were very spiritually in tune, and the women at that time who knew about this, every boy that was born, they would call Shmuel. Anybody who wanted to have a tzaddik, they would call his name Shmuel. But the heavenly voice kept going on for 40 years. So everybody knew that the tzaddik had not been born yet. When did they know that the tzaddik had been born? Actually was when Shmuel was born. And the voice from heaven stopped proclaiming every day that a boy named Shmuel is going to be born who's going to be a tzaddik that surpasses all. And that's the meaning over here when it says, "O Shmuel b'korei shemo," that call by his name. All the boys that were called by the name Shmuel during those 40 years were endowed with prophecy. Hashem gave them this gift of prophecy, and they were called the B'nai Hanavim, the prophet's sons, because they all had this gift of prophecy. And that's why it says when they called upon the name of the Lord, they prophesied in his name, he answered them, that all their prophecies came true. So how did Hashem speak to them? Verse number 7, Ba'amud anon yedaber aleihem, in a pillar of cloud he could speak to them. Shamru edosa v'chok nasan lamoy, they kept his testimonies and the statutes he gave them. So Rashi tells us, in a pillar of cloud he would speak to them. Not only did Hashem speak to Moshe and Aaron with a pillar of a cloud, which we knew was always over the tabernacle, but even to Shmuel Hanavi. It says in Shmuel chapter 9 verse 11, and they said to them, is the seer here? And they answered them, and he said, he is, yesh. You will see a cloud attached to his doorway. And so even to Shmuel, Hashem would speak through the cloud. from here we see something very beautiful. It says he spoke to them in the pillar of the cloud. Me'amloah says, the end of the pasuk says, they kept his testimonies and the statute that he gave them. And because they kept his testimonies and because they wanted to keep the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, therefore, when they called out to Hashem, he answered them. Amidst Hashem, next week we're going to conclude the last 2 verses in this chapter. I'm not sure next week, but next time I'll keep you posted. I would like to say next week, if my head is still able to not be in the Pesach Seder already on Monday. Let's see how we do. I want to wish everybody a wonderful, wonderful week. Say the words of this Tehillim, not just with your mouth. Say them with your head. Say them with your heart. Realize that we are in great darkness. We are in great darkness, but we are seeing prophecies, and for all the prophecies of the darkness and the difficulties, if these are coming to be, and we are seeing direct words, ancient words that fit into exactly what's going on today, if that part of the prophecy has come to be, then surely in the blink of an eye, the second part of the prophecy can be. In the meantime, let us all remain connected to Hashem for strength. Let us all remain connected to one another for strength, for light, for the ability to be able to hang in there and see the light, even though it's through the cloud, even though it's through the darkness, to realize that on the other side of the cloud, not just on the other side of the cloud, but actually we say it's the Godel, it's the roots that really and truly the Eibishter HaKadosh Baruch Hu is right here with us. He should have mercy very, very quickly and bring an end to all sickness and to all suffering, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual. Everybody have a beautiful, happy, good week. This was chapter 99. We got cut off in the middle, and we are going to finish the last 2 verses next time. Be'ezrat Hashem. Shavua Tov. Have a beautiful week.